Hey friends, I having a wonderful Saturday morning. I had some beautiful family time this morning, and then I got a couple hours to practice piano, preparing for the album that we're going to be recording here in a couple weeks, and also just doing my own piano practice. And I'm noticing there's something happening in my practice that's really standing out to me, and I'm saying it to kind of because it's something that I've always I've had this weird sense like maybe by talking about it I could mess it up, or it's kind of like that superstitious thing, like if I name this or if I try to describe this, maybe I'll break it. And I think that's nonsense, but I'm also kind of trying to track the mechanics of this so that I actually really see what's happening here. Basically, there's a sense I've had in the past where, the way I'm practicing now and the way that Madeline works with me and the way that I am endeavoring to work with my own students is to always, in every moment, come from a place of mindfulness. And mindfulness is, I'm even redefining mindfulness for myself as I continue my own practice and continue learning and continue studying with a teacher. But one of the things that's really showed up for me recently is that mindful practice means non-compulsive practice, by which I mean remaining really conscious in every moment of what we're doing and how we're approaching the keys, how my ears are connected to the music. Madeline is opening all these different kind of dimensions and ways into practice. I've been saying this to some of my students over the last couple of weeks. I've recently learned that if I sing a passage of music, even if the difficulty that I'm experiencing is technical and it's a hand position thing, when I start singing the passage, it's like by magic, my technique gets better. My physical hand technique gets better. I have no idea. Like I just had the experience an hour ago of practicing a passage of a Chopin etude, and I knew I just need to sing this passage. I knew that, like, even though it feels like this is a purely physical, technical thing, it's like I just need to sing this. Well, I sang it, and all of a sudden, this thing starts showing up in the way I play it that simplifies what my hand is doing, that breaks it into components, and that makes it possible to stay totally centered as I do the passage. Now, why on God's earth singing the notes got me there it's not something I can fully explain. All I know is I keep having that experience. And it's super exciting because it kind of feels like it's like the golden ticket. It's like the magic potion, the magic feather. Anything I can't play, I just sing it, and then somehow I'm able to play it. Like, what is going on? And of course, I understand it to some degree more than that, because by connecting my voice with it, I'm also connecting my ears to really what I'm doing. And when our ears are connected, we cut out the friction, the background friction of kind of not knowing, of our ears actually not knowing exactly what's happening. And we smooth that out, and so then all of a sudden that friction's gone, and it allows other things to happen more easily. That's one thing that's happening. The other thing that's happening is I think that we get in touch with the music, the actual tones that are being played. We're on a piano, we're just pushing buttons. So by singing it, it's like our body and all of us gets connected to those tones, connected to those vibrations. And that has an effect on our ability to project those vibrations, even through the piano, even through the instrument. Our actual kind of resonance with those vibrations affects the way we can then project through the instrument. That's the best I can explain it. But anyway, that's really exciting, and it's been really fun to dive into some of those things. And those are the kinds of things where it's work that you can't do compulsively. I was doing it with a student yesterday, I believe, 2 days ago maybe, yesterday. And we did it for about 3 minutes, and I was like, is this exhausting for you? And she was like, yes. And I was like, I know, me too. It's exhausting work. And one of the reasons that it's exhausting, I believe, is that it's totally non-compulsive. There's no part of us that we can put on autopilot. We have to be fully engaged physically. Our lungs, our vocal cords, our hands are still playing, our bodies. Every aspect of us is now engaged. And it's exhausting. Well, when something is exhausting, you're training yourself. It's like if you do a form of exercise and it's like, man, 5 minutes of this exercise are exhausting. Like, I'm learning this from having a fun new rowing machine in the house. Oh my God. A 10-minute row, time slows to a crawl. Feels like I'm there for 45 minutes, but it's just a 10-minute row. But it's just that physical intensity it changes time, our perception of time. Same thing with this. All of a sudden, a few minutes feels like a heavy, heavy lift. And it's because we're not and none of us, no part of us is not online for the duration of the time that we're doing that. And the thing I'm learning, this is what I was kind of initially coming on this post to say, the thing I'm learning is, I used to think that I could kind of have spurts of that work, but then I would inevitably go back to compulsive, I would go unconscious again. And what I'm finding is, the fear that will happen still arises, but I can just choose not to believe that fear. And I can just choose to show up and do the work and do mindful practice, be mindful about my practice, even if I only get a half hour, even if I only get 10 minutes. It doesn't matter really. I mean, it does matter how much we do, because the more we do, the more we're going to progress. But a little tiny bit, any bit at all, is a different universe. Literally a different universe. I feel like I am transported to a different universe, and my entire day takes place within a different universe if I do a tiny smidgen of that kind of work, versus none at all. If I get to do 2 hours of it, amazing. That's fantastic. But I don't need that, and I don't think that it's good to expect that, because I'm not always going to get that. And then it's, and if we don't get that, then it's like, okay, well, what did we get? And let's use that. Maybe today's about something else. Maybe it's about being mindful in another way. But that moment of focus just changes everything. And I think my takeaway is that I can do this consistently. We can do this work consistently. Another thing that shows up for me is a really important principle of James Clear, who wrote a book called Atomic Habits. And I've talked about this book before on this post, but his whole thing is like, when, because we tend to think in streaks. We tend to get streaky about our work. I don't know if everybody does, but I certainly can relate to that. Like, I'm building up a streak of successful work. But when I break the streak, if I have a day where I miss, I can get kind of like, oh, the streak's over. And it feels like the whole thing is broken because my streak ended. And what James Clear says is like, no. As soon as that streak ends, make it your goal to just start again. Don't make it about like, oh, the streak, maintaining the streak was, don't make that a failure. Make it like a trampoline point, boing, to just jump right back into the next phase. And I've noticed that when I do that, like I'll miss a day of meditation, right? Which it's supposed to never happen. Like I don't even know how it happens, but it does happen. But what I've noticed is just bounce right into the next day. Don't think a second thing about it. Don't have a single question about it. Just go right on. And what happens is it's almost like the streak just extends right over that missed day. And there's no loss of benefit or of momentum. Because I'm not allowing the interruption to be an interruption. The interruption happens. It's part of life. Here we go. Okay, I had an interruption, and but I'm still cruising, and it lets me not have that fear of like, oh, I've had lots of really good mindful practice days, but maybe there'll be one where maybe I'm going to fall off the horse again. That fear all of a sudden is like clearly just an imposter. And in the event that does happen, it gives me a really powerful feeling of, it's almost like by overcoming that little tiny bit of friction caused by the interruption, I'm actually strengthening the muscle that just gets right back on the horse. Because the muscle that gets back on the horse is as important as all the muscles we use to ride the horse. So the process that we get into by riding, by kind of doing our practice successfully, and all the ways we cultivate staying in flow are super important. But if we fall out of flow, the muscles that get us back in, that are different than the ones that we exercise when we're already in flow, the ones that really kind of take us from that like position of stop and put us back in the game, incredibly important muscles. And those are the ones you only get to work when you happen to have a day when you kind of fall out. So I take it as like yes, I get to practice now getting back on the horse. And man, you just spend a lot more time on the horse that way, and a lot less time sitting next to the horse going, I fell off the horse. Oh gosh, look, the horse is so big. I fell, and so I gotta climb all the way. Maybe I'll climb on the horse tomorrow. That mode of kind of self-sabotage, or sort of just letting the moment be a defeat rather than a springboard of like, okay, here we go. I get to practice this now. I get to practice getting back into flow. So it's what I'm appreciating today, and it's kind of what's shown up for me. So I offer you that as well. I love you. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you. Hope all of your lives are going wonderfully. I can't wait to see you tomorrow.